So, tell me your 2026 trend predictions, please.
Ooh, okay. I think I have way too many.
This is kind of random, and I thought I'll bring it to you.
I'm not someone who's going to be like, you're going to be wearing skinny jeans, or you're going to be wearing this, or you're going to be wearing that.
Skinny jeans.
Skinny jean.
Like 2023 was Barbie and Oppenheimer. 2024 was Brad. Last year was Laboob and all these micro trends.
It's going to be an interesting next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. It's gonna be crazy.
I agree. I think it's going to be a complete shift in fashion. Before we get into this very fun, very exciting video and hear from a lot of people you're probably going to recognize about their 2026 fashion trend predictions, let me say welcome or welcome back to the channel. And if you are new here, then hi, my name's Katie. I critique fashion and online culture. If that sounds good to you, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You come say hi on some other platforms. And with that, let's get into the intro for this video. So all of the trends mentioned in this video came from chats I had with fashion creators from YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and all are people I very much trust to know what's happening in fashion right now. Grace, Drew, Phoebe, Ayana, Kat, and Shreya all gave me very good predictions to what's going to happen in 2026. And I'm going to be trying to break down what they said and put them into more defining themes for 2026 to make it easier for you guys to watch the video. But if you want to hear the full conversation I had with each of them, I'm going to be releasing that to my REFASHIONed podcast, which you can find the link in the description for. And I highly recommend you do that because I couldn't fit everything in this video. There was simply too much. So yeah, with that, let's talk about what fashion people think is going to be in for 2026. And kind of a spoiler alert, but I feel like I should warn you, none of the people I spoke to agreed on anything, bar maybe one or two examples. There was a lot of differences of opinion, a lot of creators who said that one thing was going to be huge next year, only for no one else to bring that up in their predictions, and many random controversial takes thrown around, leading to a lot of these moments.
People who aren't into fashion won't understand why that's controversial.
Hear me out.
I feel like AI won't agree with me on this.
And I'm like, we just had that. We don't need to be nostalgic for that.
You're like, did I make this up?
And I feel like we need to discuss how this big difference in opinion everyone has in what's going to be trending is kind of a trend in itself. And I kind of want to attribute this shift to a video I did recently talking about the breakdown in trend culture and linking that to the obsession with being offline more, which I think has impacted the fashion industry so much that we might get to the point where TikTok trends, especially, and micro trends, might be a thing of the past soon. And if you're interested in this topic and the reasons I brought forward for this, then you might want to go check out that video. I'll link it on the screen. But for the purpose of this video, I think Drew actually summed up the topic really well when we brought this up in our conversation. So I kind of want to let him explain, and I'm going to throw in some examples from my other conversations just to show how true what he's saying is.
There's a lot of trends that happen in 2025, 2024 as a result of For You pages evolving, as a result of the internet expanding that you just can't predict. Like the quarter zip that just happened just recently, like where no one could have predicted that quarter zips would have had the moment that they're having. I think you're gonna have more things like that. And I just think that, the world has become such a big place when it comes to online culture, and that people exist within these silos of culture. There's a trend that might be happening in silo B, but it's not happening in silo D.
I've seen some photos on Pinterest. Of course,
I'm just going to say you're on a different side of Pinterest to me, but I'm in love with this. Like,
This is, I think, extremely niche, and I think it's only a small part of the internet.
okay, no, floor is a trend for 2026. Do you subscribe?
And as a result, I think the idea of something being trending will actually become a less relevant term. You know what I mean? It become less relevant. Yeah.
The silo A, silo B theory and the hyper-fragmentation of trends kind of explains why there's so many different takes in this video and why no one can seem to completely agree on something.
Really, there isn't one defining trend. There's like so many different ones.
I think that's gonna be the mainstream defining anchor trend of 2026.
Okay, but now we understand what we're coming into with trend culture in 2026. Now we've laid the groundwork. Let's move on to some actual trends. And I may have been exaggerating a bit when I said no one agreed on anything, because there was definitely some consensus about certain trends, starting with
Lace.
I'm thinking like a lot of lace dresses, corsets.
In like 2022, we were seeing lace capris or lace tops, but The difference that I think it's going to be in 2026 is that it's going to be more of this like camouflagey lace and like incorporating different lace panels into a piece, but it's not going to be the whole silhouette. I think it was Acne did this lace mix and match camouflagey technique on their runway, and also Delara as well did lace material with like latex over the top, so it's a bit more of like an edgy way to wear lace.
Knowing the fashion crowd, I feel like we've just inspired another debate about whether you can call that a trend or not. And I think, to me at least, there's some point there, since lace sits in the same kind of category as fur, stripes, florals, and other classic styles that you can see all year, every year. But that's not to say that a classic can't become even more popular than usual and take on the behavior of a micro trend or a hyperfixation for a couple of months. And I think it's interesting that Shreya and Grace are predicting that lace will be popular in the next couple of years, maybe in the same way we've seen polka dots become somewhat of a micro trend, even though I would also class it as a classic staple. And maybe the idea that lace will be even bigger than it always is next year makes more sense when you link it to one of Shreya's other big predictions.
We have had Barbie summer, we have had Brat summer. I think this year is gonna be Wuthering Heights summer. The aesthetic is so clear and defined, like all the romantic gothic aesthetic, like that very sexy vintage Victorian vibes. I'm thinking like a lot of lace dresses, corsets. I think that's gonna be the mainstream defining anchor trend of 2026.
That's actually one of my favorite predictions for next year, and I totally see it coming true. And I think it links really well to this idea of fashion tying itself more and more closely to other industries as it struggles to remain profitable, as it struggles to prove its worth to us. Both things we've talked about extensively on my channel in 2025. And I've also already said, I think this is only the beginning of how we're seeing fashion start to collaborate with film, art, literature, music, and especially sport. And this was validated by something Grace mentioned in our chat, and I know she's spoken about on her channel before, and I've brought up on my channel.
The personal style in gym wear trend. It's actually still such a niche trend, and it's still in the beginning stages. We've had the early adopters like Isabella Vrana, and I think her name is Natalia Sports, who's really gone viral on TikTok for her personal style gym wear looks. And I think on the brand side that we could see sports brands start to tap into this and create more experimental gym pieces as well. I just think we're going to see more fashion and sport merging generally.
So if anyone's keeping track, that's a general consensus that fashion is going to be big on lace, on sport, on film and culture next year. And the last trend everyone agreed on that I don't think is going to shock anybody, because pretty much the entire internet agrees.
White is weird. I don't like that. No one likes that.
Cloud Dancer really depressed and angered me.
Like, sure. Yeah, people will be wearing white. Yeah. But like, come on.
I mean, just give me any color, but not white, because I think everything is pretty dull already.
So, okay, good news or bad news, depending on how you look at it. That's kind of the end of everyone agreeing with each other. And we're going to move into a different part of the trend video now, which I've kind of categorized as same idea, different origin or manifestation. This is definitely going to be a messier set of predictions. And kind of speaking of, the messy girl trend was brought up by a lot of different people.
I don't want to be, clean girl. I want to be the opposite.
But everyone had different ideas on how this would manifest and how we would actually be wearing it.
Come from clean girl, we want to be the other way now. We want a bandage here, we want bruising here. You see it on like high fashion shows. All the models have like this crazy messy dragged out of bed hair.
Do you think in 2026 that kind of rock and roll ultra skinny jean is going to be a thing, and the whole vibe that goes along with that?
Tucking pants into boots, I think, is going to explode this year. And I've also started seeing it with people tucking sweatpants into boots and like track pants and stuff, and just like not caring that it's kind of unflattering, like the pants exploding out of the boots.
So random, but I feel like bandages and like medical core, like I've seen some photos on Pinterest of like back braces and things like that, but being put into fashion. It's going to be a matter of time before a small brand comes out with like a medical looking bandage or something like that.
I was seeing a few looks from the last season. I saw some looks with like a lot of fur trims, and I really like fur trims. A lot of fur, and I saw a lot of looks were very feather focused. There was a lot of feather resurgence for somehow. Like, you remember in 2016 we had those feather dangly earrings and everything. I definitely want to see more feather.
I feel like it ties into the messy girl like trend we've started to see, and kind of like Swan Lake vibes. And I feel like that's going to be so big for 2026, and it
so ties into the feathers thing. Okay, the next trend I had in this category is also super popular, so I don't think it's going to shock anyone. But even something as universally agreed upon as
Skinny jeans.
Skinny jean.
still has people disagreeing on exactly why they're back and exactly how we're going to be styling them. Grace and Kat seem convinced that this is because of a rock and roll resurgence in society.
Punk especially is going to be such a big thing.
Grace, for example, was mentioning Heidi Slimane as inspo.
Skinny jeans and like fitted leather jacket, figure hugging silhouettes, very like Hedi Slimane inspired aesthetic. Overall, that kind of rock and roll vibe, but ultra skinny silhouettes.
And Phoebe just gave the reason.
I think people will buy skinny jeans because that tucking jeans into boots trend is going to come in. So many people have such wide leg and barrel leg jeans now that you can't even physically really tuck them into boots. So I think people will be buying skinny jeans. I don't think it'll be like skin tight at all.
Like, they can't even agree on whether the skinny jeans trend is going to be skin tight skinny jeans or just skinnier than the wide leg and barrel pants we've been seeing. So if you're using this video as a shopping list, first, I'm sorry, and secondly, don't buy something just because someone else thinks it's cool. But anyway, moving on. I think we can all agree nostalgia has been big for the past few years. And in 2024, 2025 especially, we saw the Y2K resurgence really hit its peak. But I think we're going to be moving slightly on from that in 2026, or still stay stuck in the past, but in a slightly different past, depending on how you look at things. Either way, the nostalgia trend cropped up in so many of people's trend predictions.
I love 70s music as well. And the Bruce Springsteen movie just got released recently, which I watched, which was amazing. And I think although no one's talking about it, I wouldn't say anyways. I know that's where my heart is.
I think that most of my predictions come from like 2010s fashion. I think we're kind of diving back into that, like wedge boots, which I think
you
are
just
also...
thrifted some, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I thrifted. Wait, I get questions about these boots all the time. They're vintage 9 West boots, and they're like suede, 2012 in a shoe.
The 80s resurgence we're seeing in fashion in general is going to come into this, and I feel like we're going to get that aerobic videotape sort of vibe. Although, as you can probably tell, no one could agree what we would actually be nostalgic for, just that we would be. And some people were happier about that than others.
We already have had the Y2K push for I think since 2020, we have been riding the Y2K nostalgia wave. And I'm really so sick of it. And now I've seen so many posts around 2016 nostalgia. I don't know if you've seen those reels of like 2026 LA, the pink wall, the OG pink wall, the wings. And I'm like, we just had that. We don't need to be nostalgic for that. It's not even been a while. I probably still have photos from that era on my phone. It's not something that we need to revisit.
One difference of ideas that was super interesting to me from these trend predictions was the theme of silhouettes changing and gender roles playing a part in how we dress next year. And Ayana's really niche prediction on this was what sparked this idea in my mind.
This is, I think, extremely niche, and I think it's only a small part of the internet. I think that with clothes, we will kind of like alter the shapes of our body. Silhouettes will like evolve in a sense. My feeling for this trend comes from, so first we had like the Skims Merkin, and I see a resurgence of cone bras and playing with vintage lingerie that kind of played upon your shape, but not to your shape.
Her bringing up the Merkin and the cone bra as examples kind of hints that feminine fashion might be big next year. Although, do I think we're all going to be buying the thong from Skims? No. At least I hope not. But this became even more interesting when I heard almost the opposite from Kat and Phoebe. Instead of them saying things like, we're going to be drawing attention to our bras, we're going to be playing with the feminine form, they were saying things like,
people just like drowning themselves in clothing is going to be the look of 2026.
I think a big thing that we're going to probably start to see next year is androgynous looks coming in, especially from women, with a lot of people at the moment wanting to like find themselves and figure out their identity. I think the more and more we're going to find our subcultures and what groups we fit into, I think the less pressure women especially are going to feel to dress in a feminine way.
Now, I'm not sure who's going to win in this feminine versus androgynous fashion debate. And if we look at the other trends, I think there's examples for both. You've got lace, gothic romance, and skinny jeans all kind of hinting towards the feminine fashion approach. But I also think Kat had some really interesting ties to subcultures becoming big and that influencing our dressing more than TikTok trends. And of course, the messy girl aesthetic can lean towards being slobbish or dressing like a 12-year-old boy at times. So I feel like this one is the most up in the air. But okay, moving on to another subcategory of trend. We've gone from everyone agrees to people agree, but they're giving different reasons, to this category, which is more theoretical, more framed around our changing behaviors and approach to fashion. And one thing that came up a lot was,
I think there's going to be an increasing divide between the algorithm versus IRL, kind of the split between the people who spend or consume a lot of their content online and the people who are generating references from real life.
And we've talked about this topic on the channel many times. And I've spoken specifically about this shift from online to offline culture causing somewhat of an identity crisis in Gen Z. I actually saw a few examples of this cropping up in my chats with other creators too.
Thing for me is like not just getting fashion inspo from fashion. This book that I've read about 3 times, my favorite book, Just Kids by Patti Smith. I think her whole vibe has put that punk ripped clothes and like that kind of black tops and things like that kind of in my head. And if not for me reading that book, it probably wouldn't be in my head. So
I feel like people are going to start wearing those like 2010s kinds of little blouses and tops like we did literally in middle school. But I was at the thrift recently and I was seeing a bunch of old Abercrombie and American Eagle blouses.
People referencing things they were reading, things they'd seen in real life, what them and their friends are wearing, rather than what they've seen on TikTok. And my conversation on this with Drew led into how I think this is going to impact TikTok culture, especially since that's something I'm super interested in.
Is it almost going to be more acceptable for people to say there's a trend going on and reference something they saw in real life rather than online, and that be like the cool indicator of like, this is happening because I saw a girl on the train wearing it and then I saw someone in a coffee shop wearing it, versus someone on my For You page was wearing this. And
my other kind of trend in this subcategory of theoretical changing behaviors was the evolution of the personal style trend and how that's impacting our buying habits. Again, something we've spoken about so much on the channel, and I think something on a lot of people's minds, since a lot of the creators brought up how they've been feeling about this and how it's influencing their wardrobes next year.
Everyone wants their thing. Last year, I'll give you an example of something that I did literally wore every day, was a bolo tie. I like claimed it, like this is what I'm trying to do, like something that feels like Kat. And I think everyone's trying to figure out like what's their thing, like what's their signature thing, you know?
I love that actually, and I think it's definitely very much a evolution of like the personal style trend. We've worked out that we can't shop our personal style, and now it's what's the like little signifier that shows that you're above it.
When it comes to items that I am like very interested in, there's a company out of Spain that I discovered early 2025 that is called Marcus Yorn. They make bespoke and kind of crafted, made-to-measure leather shoes that are essentially meant to last a lifetime.
Next year, I think we'll see more play on fabrics, more innovative fabrics, which allow more individual customization when you wear that jacket. So meaning that jacket on you could look completely different to the same person wearing that jacket, depending on how they customize it based on those manipulative features in the fabric. For example, the new Glen Martens and H&M collab, we had these jackets that would be like super stiff, which is like something we haven't had before. And you could alter the silhouettes, or if you twist them with wires, they would stay in place.
And with that, we've reached the end of the big defining trends for 2026. But we're not done yet. Now we're going to go on to the ones that didn't fit in anywhere, that were so random, so niche, so unable to link with something else someone said, that I had to just collect these random ones into their own section for the video. And honestly, I think it might have some of my favorite predictions, including one I gave Phoebe that completely confused her. But right before we get into that, I thought it might be fun to clip together some of the most controversial opinions and takes that I saw in these conversations and do it with zero context just for you guys to enjoy.
You know, I think a lot of people like hated it, but I think it was really fun. They have glamorized it, made it for Gen Z, as they say.
Kind of felt a little bit forced in some places on the internet.
And it's funny because I don't know if that's going to be necessarily so authentic or if it's going to be a bit of a trending content piece.
And all I'm going to say is that if you do want more context for those takes, then go listen to the full chat on the ReFashion podcast I've already mentioned. The link will be in the description, and I'm going to release every single chat with every creator. Okay, time for my favorite part of the video, the niche specific trends that only one person seems to have picked up on. And I'm just going to speed run them. So let me know your favorites in the comments.
You have this expansion of cultural imports and exports from, I think, three major Asian countries. I think you have Japan, Korea, and China. In 2025, you saw movies like K-pop Demon Hunters, which, really popped off. When we're talking about things that are coming out of China, I'm thinking about Labubus right away, right? Obviously, the biggest probably trend of 2025. And when we're talking about Japan, talking about Japanese denim, Japanese Americana, these things in menswear are still incredibly, incredibly popular, incredibly big. When we're talking about Japan, you're also talking about vintage and the entire movement of secondhand buying and the culture around that as well, which is really prominent over there as well. I was just there and I would know. And so I think for 2026, what you'll see is an expansion of those things, right? As more people are put onto what is happening in this country and more people might be interested, we're talking about China, Korea, I think, K-pop and all the things that are surrounding that culture. I think that it'll continue to explode. And I think it's just going to continue to grow and expand in 2026.
I've seen a couple of celebrities like wearing very like heavy jewelry, and I mean like jewelry, layers of jewelry, like a jewelry overload look. I think that is something I want to see. Like people just wearing everything, like how much ever stuff they have, just put it on and go out, and just maybe with a
Yes.
basic top or a white top, just wear everything. I think that's really fun. You get to like make dangly cute little sounds when you walk,
I love
and
that. I wonder if that's because there was like a point on the catwalks where everyone was like, where's the jewelry? Why is everyone like bare necked?
yeah, I want to see more jewelry. I want to see people wearing everything they have.
I was gonna say one of your trend predictions was like silver and gold together. Like that's fun.
Yeah, I know that you can't always wear that together, and there's a big people like really hate mixing them. But I think if it looks good or if you want to wear it, you should just wear it.
The one other thing that I do see coming back is wearing like V-neck or plunge neck or whatever, just any kind of like sweater or jumper without anything underneath them. I feel like that was such a big thing for the past like 5 or 10 years, was to have white t-shirt under a crew neck or white t-shirt under a little sweater. Yes, exactly.
Literally me.
I think I said this in a video, and there's a photo of Hailey Bieber circa 2010s where she's wearing like a tight V-neck sweater with nothing underneath, and she's wearing like sneakers with ankle socks and stuff, and it's just like everyone's like, ew, like remember when we used to do that? I'm really curious if the ankle socks with sneakers will ever come back. People who aren't into fashion won't understand why that's controversial, but if you're watching this video, you'll probably be right there with me. Your audience is probably like, oh cool, I'm taking fashion advice from this girl. Yeah, sorry, I'm in my
I'm in jumpers and hoodies like 90% of it. No one actually gets dressed anymore. It's fine.
Sitting on the floor, I'm not getting dressed.
Okay, no, floor is a trend for 2026. Do you subscribe? Okay, no, the amount of people I've seen talking about floor and like sitting on the floor and it being like a mindset for 2026 is actually, it's jarring.
That's hilarious. But the funny thing is like, it kind of makes sense to me because I also do like a little bit of interior design stuff here and there on my channel. And so I'm like deep in the interior design rabbit hole on Pinterest. And I see such a trend now of people having their mattress on the floor. People leaning into the aesthetic of just moved into their apartment and barely have anything in there, but then just keeping it like that. Mattress on the floor, lamp on the floor, books on the floor, on Pinterest, everywhere.
I think that's interesting. I think maybe is that like the messy girl meets minimalism, like kind of mesh? Yeah,
totally.
That's interesting. I feel like I've seen more like fashion editorials on the floor too, but I can't. I cannot reference them from you. I feel like I've just pulled this out. When you're like subconsciously you've noticed something, and then you said something, and it triggered me now. So this is like groundbreaking journalism.
Yeah. You're like, did I make this up?
Yeah.
Okay, and with that, I feel like we've gone through almost every single 2026 trend I and all of these other creators can think of. And if we happen to miss one out and you're screaming at the screen right now, then make sure you watch the next video I put out, because it's going to be your guys' 2026 predictions. And there are some very interesting thoughts in there, so make sure you've subscribed. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and thank you so much to Drew, Phoebe, Shreya, Kat, Grace, and Ayana for agreeing to talk to me for this video, for taking the time to give me their trend predictions, and I'm going to let them end the video.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you had me in your videos.
I'm definitely excited for 2026 fashion.
That's everything I have in mind.
This is
I'm
gonna be
gonna do-
such a fun video to watch. Oh my god.
I think it'll be fun. I want to like come back to it next year.
Thank you for having me on. It's cool. I've been, like I said before, I've been a big fan of your content for a while, so it's cool to get to chat.
That's crazy. I'm fangirling that you said that. I am equally a massive fan.